Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, JoJo Magoo had himself a little press conference yesterday. One of my viewers sent me a link to the end of it, which he's asked a question about saying Trump 24 times. So we'll get to that in just a moment. There's a new OSHA rule about vaccine mandates for companies, and I'm going to cover that on my other channel, most likely today, the apocalaughsnow channel, and more on Aaron Rodgers and Jimmy Kimmel's and things. So that you can find that on my, other channel probably later today. It's Friday today. But anyways, let's start here with JoJo Magoo. I got a bunch of stuff to get to, stuff about the economy as well. And Bill Gates has sort of come out of hiding to talk about smallpox. But let's start here.
Critical race theory, and they're worried that Democrats don't have an effective way to push back on that.
Well, I think that the whole answer is just to speak the truth, lay out where we are.
Good. Let's get somebody to do that. Like, who are you going to get to do that? You're not a truth teller. He's been caught lying time and time again. He's lying like every moment. Like his whole campaign's a lie. His whole life's a lie. Everything about him is a lie, right? Politicians are professional liars. And so, it's pretty obvious to most of us, I think, by now.
Look, I'm convinced that if you look at everything from my view on the criminal justice system to my view on equal opportunity to my view on economic issues and all the things that I have and what I've been pushing in legislation, each of the elements are overwhelmingly popular. We have to speak to them, though.
He's just so bad at this. He's horrible at public speaking at this point. His mind doesn't work correctly. He doesn't, really understand the questions, and he's delusional. What's happened here is that the people who voted for JoJo Magoo and people who are just, were believing that Trump was the devil and that somehow all the bad things that were happening to them could go away if Trump wasn't president. I mean, that's what the media presented this as. If JoJo got 80 million votes, if that's legitimate, then that's the reason. People thought he was going to, getting rid of Trump was going to solve all their problems. And that once JoJo took office, things would go back to normal. But they've gotten worse, and they're going to continue to get worse. Inflation is here to stay. Plus, he has become more liberal than they, wanted him to be. And people don't like liberalism. Most people, especially this form of liberalism. And so there's nowhere to go for JoJo Magoo. Like he's being, used as a scapegoat now. He is going to be blamed for this. Instead of being a solver of problems, he is the guy who's going to take the fall for your lifestyle disappearing. And he doesn't even know it. Like he's completely clueless. I think most politicians know when they're being sacrificed. JoJo has no clue.
We have to speak to them and explain them. Look, I just think people are at a point, and it's understandable, where there's a whole lot of confusion. Everything from, are you going to ever get COVID under control, to, are my kids going to be in school? Are they going to be able to stay in school? To whether or not I'm going to get a tax break that allows me to be able to pay for the needs of my kids and my family. And they're all things that I'm running on, that we'll run on, and I think we'll do fine.
Yeah, the election's over, bro. I'm running on these things. The election's over. And CNN knows it because I got a segment coming up. They're finally realizing what the rest of us have known for years about democratic politics and, this new form of liberalism. And so, but look at this clueless MNF, just completely lost.
Mr. President.
This ought to be good.
I think so too. About the way forward, Mr. President. As you were leaving for your overseas trip, there were reports that were surfacing that your administration is planning to pay illegal immigrants who are separated from their families at the border up to $450,000 each, possibly $1 million per family. Do you think that that might incentivize more people to come over illegally?
If you guys keep sending that garbage out, yeah, but it's not true.
So this is a garbage report.
Yeah.
Okay, so
$450,000 per person. Is that what you're saying?
that was separated from a family member at the border under the last administration.
That's not going to happen.
So what is going to happen? Like, how much are you going to pay these families, right? Like, you now, all right, then what are you going to do? You could say it right now. What's your, I mean, they're in the negotiation process with a lawsuit. And keep in mind, like, when a soldier's lost, I think his family gets $100,000. I know in Vietnam, it was $10,000 because my brother put me down as his beneficiary if he was killed in Vietnam. And he told me, years later. And so what I believe it is now is $100,000. So if American families, when they're, they lose a loved one, get only $100,000, how much are these families going to get? Because these aren't American citizens and they're here illegally, right? And so he needs to answer this question. The report didn't come out of nowhere, right? Like, there was some truth to it. So how much are you planning to pay these families? If it's anything, but, anything is better than a prison sentence, right, for doing something that is illegal. And so, and even a prison sentence becomes something where people who are in desperate need get food. You have a lot of people who are desperate in other countries. And if their lifestyle is so bad, they're willing to send their kids across the desert, 1,000 miles of desert. I mean, really hot. Like, when you go out to Arizona and Utah and Nevada and you go out there in the summer or just, in general, and cold at night, right? So this is harsh conditions. The deserts have extreme temperatures and, other things. There's animals, there's, nefarious, like, bad people, gangs, drug runners, all these things out there. And you have, young kids crossing these deserts to find a better life in America. And so it's understandable. My parents are immigrants. I can see why people want to come here. But if you're going to have an immigration policy and you're going to have, an official way to go through the immigration system and people are violating that, then it's going to be a problem. You've got to deal with it as a government. But if people find out that you're not punishing them for breaking the law, you're not, you're paying them to come into the country in some way, then they're going to come, right, in droves. Okay,
and then just a follow-up, because you mentioned Trump a couple times. When you went to try to help Terry McAuliffe a couple weeks ago before you left, you mentioned Trump 24 times. Do you still think that voters really want to hear you talking about Trump more than the issues affecting them every day?
Well, the reason I mentioned Trump, if I didn't count the times.
It was 24, so he's already told you how many it was. We counted. It's 24 times. 24, JoJo. You said 24 times, and they were very rapid. There was a 16-minute speech, 15-minute speech.
Is because the issues he supports are affecting their lives every day, and they're a negative impact on their lives, in my view. Thank you all very much.
What is your message to congressional Democrats on getting that bill?
And then he runs away, right? I didn't watch the rest of the press conference, but I assume it's just more of this. I might watch it later and cover it depending on how things play out. Well, anyways, the CNN they recognize that the Democratic message is failing, and JoJo and his party are in free fall, because I saw this yesterday somehow, and I was able to grab it on YouTube TV last night.
The autopsy is already underway, and the findings are critical as Democrats try now to avoid a 2022 midterm rout. What do I mean by autopsy? Well, Democrats will be studying, even though Phil Murphy won re-election, Democrats will be studying the suburbs in northern New Jersey. Yes, they're still blue, but the Republican candidate, Jack Ciattarelli, made major inroads in the suburbs, which have been key for the Democrats throughout, especially the Trump age in American politics. That's not the only place, though. Look down here. See this red in southern Jersey right here? Those are blue-collar voters. You go back to Phil Murphy in 2017.
So one thing that JoJo Magoo always had was he was able to connect with like blue collar Democrats and Republicans. He was always big on unions, and this, just his name Joe and the way he talks, and being from Pennsylvania, all the things that he claims about his life. He was always able to connect with these blue collar workers. That's one of the reasons they wanted to pick him, because those same workers handed Trump the victory in Wisconsin and some of these other Midwestern states and Pennsylvania. So they thought JoJo Magoo would be able to connect with these voters better than Hillary did. And now they're bailing on him. So this would be, a big indicator that these guys who once believed in JoJo Magoo don't believe in him anymore. And there's going to be more of it, right? Because inflation's not stopping. They're covering up how much inflation. They're preventing the inflation from actually being what it is, right? So when you pay twice as much for a loaf of bread, that's going to affect people, like in ways that all this other stuff doesn't. When people can't afford to feed their families anymore, and then with all the stuff with people quitting their jobs or, having to choose between, getting the job or quitting and things, and the economy takes a hit because of that. I mean, all these things, right? This is, bad news for the economy, and the bailout money is running out, and the bailout money that's driving inflation up is only, it's like taking out a cash advance on your credit card. It's, if you've ever done that, the interest is so high, and so you have the cash, and when the cash runs out, you're 4 times as poor as you were before you took out the cash advance.
When he first won, he won those counties. They flipped. Joe Biden won those counties easily. They flipped. Democrats have a problem, not just in the suburbs, but they lost a lot of blue-collar workers. Now let's move down to the Commonwealth of Virginia. That one goes from blue to red. Let's come forward to 2021. You have a new Republican governor. He just met with the Democrat to discuss the transition. What do Democrats have to worry about? Number one, Republicans are energized. They came out of the woodwork. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, outperforming Donald Trump in rural conservative Virginia. That's a problem. But again, in the Northern Virginia suburbs, they're still blue, but the Republican candidate narrowed the margins. That's what you have to do in competitive elections. And down here in Southeast Virginia, Glenn Youngkin flipped 2 counties there and 1 just south of Richmond that Biden won handily, that the last Democratic governor won handily. Mark Warner, who is a former governor, now senator from Virginia, says one problem in the campaign is Democrats sounded too liberal.
You can't win in Virginia if you only appeal to very liberal voters. Maybe that can work in certain other states. It doesn't work in Virginia. We will take the lessons from Virginia, that we need to govern in a pragmatic way, and give this president the wins that I think the American people will win by as well.
This is typical politicians. They say something truthful, which is the liberals are killing their party. And it's, more than just that, because they have these coalitions. They have varying demographics that the political candidates appeal to. And so in the Democratic Party, they have moderate Democrats that believe in some things that are, liberal. They believe in some things that are conservative, independent voters that are, more in the center. And then you have the liberals, the very, adamant liberals. Just like in the Republican Party, you have moderate Republicans, and then you have like sort of the right-wing right-wing QB type people. And so you can't please both of them. You can bring them together by making false promises, but you're promising 2 different things to each group, right? You're promising one thing to one group and another thing to the other group, and it's multiple groups, and you can't deliver on both because, you're making contradictory promises. And that's what the Democrats did. And, wrapping it up in how bad Trump sucks, and once he's gone, it'll be better for you. And so that was the essence of their campaign. Trump is bad. You get rid of him, and things will go back to normal. But that hasn't happened, right? So they promised this, but things are even worse now. Like, not just in terms of, the economy, but in terms of COVID. More restrictive, and people are getting pissed, right? And some of them are having, negative reactions to the COVID juice, right? And so, people are like flipping out about how bad things are getting, and they don't have any enthusiasm for JoJo in the first place. They didn't love the guy. They're not fans of his, whoever voted for him, whatever support he had. And now you've driven the right-wing people who are so flipped out by what's going on because of the, having to appease the liberals you made promises to. And so for him to come out and say, oh, no, we're going to get it together. No, you're not, right? You're a divided party that's at war with itself. And the liberals aren't, they expect to be validated, and they're going to be pissed. And, they wanted Bernie anyway.
With me to share their insights and their expertise, two Democrats with a lot of experience at this. Margie O'Mara, a principal at the Democratic polling firm GBAO. Paul Begala, Democratic strategist and a CNN political commentator. I want to start with this, which is always the North Star of American politics, but especially in midterm elections, and that is that the President of the United States right now, at this moment, has a 42% approval rating. If the Democratic president is at 42%, the Democratic Party is in trouble. That is just a fact. The question is what to do about it. And you see, tell me if you think I'm wrong, I see one of the issues is a disconnect from what the president says and what voters see. The Afghanistan withdrawal will be smooth and orderly. It was not. Whether you agree or disagree with it, it was not. Inflation will be fleeting. It is not. He gave a speech in July when the COVID numbers looked great on July 4th and gave the impression that we were coming out of the tunnel. It's not his fault the Delta variant happened, but it happened.
See, he's calling him a liar here, right? They're not going to treat him like they treated Trump, but this is the point where JoJo Magoo is no longer going to get the protection that he did. They're still not going to treat him like they treated Trump, but he's getting, real questions and real scrutiny, lesser than he should. Like they're not going to confront the obvious dementia and these other things. But this has been happening slowly over time. And now his lies, eventually a politician's promises and lies catch up with them. They say things they can't deliver on. They cover things up that come out. And eventually, you can't protect them anymore. And CNN their orders have changed at some point, where now they're covering JoJo Magoo like, he's a flawed human being. Before they were just protecting him every possible way, not saying anything negative. And they knew it because they used to say it all the time before he was running against Trump. His whole career, he was a joke, and everybody knew it. And CNN decided to cover that up, or was ordered to cover that up during his running against Trump, but now it's coming to the surface. And we all knew this was going to happen, right? It couldn't not. JoJo was never going to be able to deliver. I said, whoever was the president was going to be in charge of looting what was left of American wealth and introducing a new, way less good lifestyle to the American people. Like this is, a phase. If the goal is by 2030 that you're not going to own anything and you're going to like it, then what's going to happen between now and then in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of things sucking for you, that you would accept Agenda 30 housing and giving up all your worldly possessions and being beholden to corporations and the government for everything, right? Being completely owned by them and not having your own house, your own land, all these things, right? Giving up on, so much of what we have now, then things are going to have to get really worse that you would accept that as a better deal.
Is that a problem, and how does the president fix it? That he seems disconnected from the realities of a lot of voters' lives.
Well, I don't know if he seems disconnected. I think we need to meet voters where they are in terms of what they're experiencing, whether it's inflation or something else, but also point to something getting done, an aspiration to work together, which is something that we should be holding Republicans accountable for being obstructionists on the Hill, for seemingly having no plan at all other than obstruction and doing nothing. So I think it's not just about describing what people are feeling. It's also coming together and saying, what are we going to do to really heal the country, work together, show that government can, do important things, the things that really helped the president have very strong numbers in the beginning of his term.
So this person, I've never seen her before, said a bunch of words, and none of them really, made sense at all given what he just presented, right? Like holding the Republicans accountable, that's not going to happen because the American people are going to look at a Democratic majority and the promises JoJo and the Democratic Party and the media made. I mean, CNN was carrying watered MSNBC and all the other major networks news, even Fox to some extent, bailed on Trump. And so this has nothing to do with the Republicans. They're, of course, going to be oppositional. They have no choice based in everything that's happened, just like the Democrats are. They're not going to work together. There's a great division in this country. And people seeing Republicans working with Democrats will, think they're betraying them, right? So they can't, that's how it is. It's so polarized. And, I mean, she should know that. Anybody should know that. Like, why is this person on TV? Like, everything she said isn't based in reality at all, right? And it's not even about, like, voting or what people think or feel or whatever it is. It's about the reality of how bad things are getting, and that everybody in America believes they were promised, because they were, that the American system would always be on top and their lifestyle would always be the same and better. Would just be getting better and better. And now the reality of it, well, that's not true. Things are going to get worse because they always have to. Things go in, ebbs and flows, and America's going down. America's no longer going to be number one. And most Americans can't accept that. And they're going to have a hard time even, in terms of the conceptual idea that their lifestyle isn't going to get better and they're not going to be valued as a customer and they're going to be treated in a way that, that they were told they never were going to be treated.
If you have lived through this, Bill Clinton, you were in the Clinton White House, and, in the first midterm election, wham, Newt Gingrich becomes Speaker. Obama was president, wham, wiped out. Republicans take the House. Trump had the same problem. Nancy Pelosi became Speaker. So this is not unique to Joe Biden, that the party in power has trouble out of the box. But you do see, when you look again, the suburbs were gold for the Democrats in the Trump age. Glenn Youngkin and also the Republican candidate in New Jersey made significant inroads. I think Democrats should be even more worried about those blue-collar counties in southern New Jersey that flipped. What is wrong? Where's the disconnect between a guy? Joe Biden won them so easily 1 year ago, Paul.
Right. And I think this is the first thing is, do we have a problem? Right. There are still Democrats in the denialist caucus. Oh, it's just Harper. No, it's a heart attack. Or they better take it very bloody seriously.
Yeah, JoJo Magoo can't survive a heart attack. Right? The guy's hanging on by a thread, right? He's crapping his pants down. Like, what happens when he has a heart attack? I mean, this is, there was no room for this sort of a thing. There was no margin for politics as usual because of the crisis and the way people felt and what they were promised in terms of what would happen to their lives if Trump was no longer president. That's what the media promised them. That's what the Democrats promised them. And it's gotten worse. And it's going to continually get worse. It's not, it's not getting better. Supply chain issues. I mean, all these things. They're manufacturing the taking down of America. They're trying to, slowly let your lifestyle is no longer, your lifestyle is out of stock.
By which I mean, voters picked Joe Biden, and to an extent the rest of the Democrats, because they wanted progress, getting things done, and unity. What have we seen from Capitol Hill? You cover it every single day. We see stalemate and division, right? And so it's been a perfect storm. The left on the Hill tells voters, we're not delivering for you. We're not getting your child care. We're not getting your, okay, the moderates, we just saw Joe Manchin do it. The moderates are saying, we're too liberal. So the liberals are depressing the Democratic base. The moderates are alienating the swing. And the Republicans then sweep into that with this divisive critical race theory, cultural, racial dog whistles. That's a more effective strategy when the Democrats aren't delivering on middle-class economics. And so the Democrats can do a lot to change this, and they, by God, better.
You mentioned the dog whistles. I want to bring this issue up because I think, again, it's a challenge of how do the Democrats deal with it, because you're right. When you talk about critical race theory in Virginia, and it's not taught in Virginia schools, that's a dog whistle. That's a dog whistle to people who maybe lived in an affluent white suburb 20 years ago, and they're seeing a lot of diversity and a lot of change, and they're thinking, oh, my God, I'm worried about this. But
you can see the woman there is not buying it. Like, she's drunk the Kool-Aid, right? And she's going to say something here. And then this guy's going to say the most important part of this segment here, which is what this is really about. And, most of us already knew. But she is not believing in this, right? Like so many Democrats. And it's because they believe in their own lies, right? Many of these people, most of them, believe in their own lies. And so it's much easier to conduct a massive conspiracy to push something through when you believe in it. Like, you know, when you actually know that it's, like for you, you know it's true, even though it's not. And so you're pushing it, you're selling it because you believe it, right? It's always better when you believe it. And most of these people do. And then when reality slaps them in the face, and it's now for some people, like after this Virginia thing, for these, you know, pundits and these Democrats, some of them are getting the slap now, but some of them are like, oh, that wasn't a slap. That's just, you know, no big deal, right? You know, and it's going to come around, and it's coming around for American people who are realizing they got played. And, you know, I mean, they're told all these things about Trump and how he was the problem, and he isn't the problem. Things are worse now. And so, you know, they know that they got lied to. They got, you know, worked.
But how do Democrats deal with it when it does prove, if you look at the exit poll, Margie, you look at the issues in Virginia, economy and jobs and education. Economy and jobs, part of the COVID frustration is the Democrats' problems there. And perhaps as the virus is tamed, that number's different next year. Or that number works to Democrats' advantage maybe by next year. That's possible. The education issue, traditionally a Democratic issue. One of the challenges is some Democrats, forgive me, my language, you can disagree if you want, get elitist about this. And they say, you know, horseshit. It's not taught in the Virginia.
He just said horseshit. And Don Lemon said BS twice, you know, not the initials. He said the words. And so I guess on CNN now you can swear. You know, like, I mean, these newsmen are now swearing all the time. Like that's their being authentic. Like that's what, instead of being real people and being authentic, but that's what sucks about CNN and these other news networks. These people are acting fake, and they're not being what they really are, and they're not saying what they really feel. They're, you know, putting on an act. And that was always the case for news people, but the act used to be better. They were, you know, they were acting like journalists. They were acting like they were good people, and now they're just shills who now swear, right? And also cry. I'm not going to show my cry compilation, but I did a video on this, I think on my other channel, where CNN reporters were all crying over COVID. It was like a new thing. Oh, you guys got to cry. And then all of a sudden MSNBC was doing it, and everybody was crying. You know, it's like, all right, you guys can get emotional now. And they're so robotic and so artificial, they don't act like real people. They're so ghoulish. And then they were crying, right? It's crying ghouls. Swearing and crying ghouls. CNN.
Schools. So forget it, this won't work. But it does work. So what is the answer? How do Democrats talk about this and take it on?
Okay, so there are a few things. First of all, when people say education, it doesn't mean necessarily that everyone's thinking about critical race theory. There are lots of things happening. You've had schools, particularly in parts of Virginia, closed and shut down for a long time. And so there's a lot happening with COVID, et cetera. So I would not just say anybody who says they're concerned about education, that their one concern is preventing their child from reading Beloved in their senior year. So at the same time, I also want to note that this discussion about CRT was not effective for Republicans on the right all over the country. You had school board races in Ohio, you know, that did not flip. You had a huge investment in a recall effort at the school board level in Wisconsin. Those did not flip. So this isn't just...
Did it only work in Virginia because Terry McAuliffe said in a debate, you know, I'm not going to listen? He said something that was frankly dumb?
I don't know. I think there's a lot to unpack. It is not just simply one issue. Now, how do we talk about it? I think you say, first of all, you have to acknowledge this is not being taught in public schools. At the same time, we should be teaching complete, honest history to our students, and this should not be something that politicians are using as political football. And that way, you are recognizing that people are hearing something and you're addressing it, but you're also noting, like, look, what is the issue here? The issue is we should be teaching actual history, not what politicians want.
So they always do this. This is a news trick, a flim-flam man trick, where they have this woman, like in this case, and she represents the liberal branch of the Democrats, and she's appealing to the liberals, right? And people who are liberal are going to agree with her. And this other guy's a moderate, and people who are moderate are going to agree with him, and they're not going to remember what she said, right? That's what she said. But it doesn't work because the majority of people are bummed because they were let down, right? Like I've been saying, they were promised something, and the promise isn't going to be delivered. And nobody can say anything about that, right? No, there's no words that are going to fix that. When you're paying twice as much for a loaf of bread, no, political jargon is going to make you feel better about your current economic situation or the stuff to do with schools or whatever it is, right? Like your lifestyle is gone and you want somebody to blame. And right now that person is Joe Biden and the left-leaning media.
Again, I want to circle back to the president since he's always the North Star of this. Abigail Spanberger, who's a vulnerable district in Virginia, quoted in the New York Times in a fascinating piece by Jonathan Martin today, essentially saying he wasn't elected. Nobody elected Biden to be FDR. They elected him to be normal and to stop the chaos. You touched on this a little bit earlier, Paul. We watched, this is not to, I'm not criticizing any president, but presidents, when you get repudiated in an election, do I just double down or do I tack and do something different? In the Clinton days, Bill Clinton did a lot of things different. He did small things like school uniforms, little things to try to prove people, I'm doing little things that won't change everything, but they might help your life today. Must Joe Biden do that?
Yes. Yes, he needs to listen to Mark Warner. This elitism, it's not so much left-right as it's up-down, okay? I mean, you're from Dorchester, I'm from Sugar Land, Texas. People where we come from don't much like it if somebody tells us, I'm better than you. By the way, in my case, they always are, but so what? We don't like that, and it makes voters, they hear this cultural and educational elitism from the Democrats, and they react to it. So I guess, like, for me, I think what Democrats ought to say about critical race theory is it's not taught in our schools, but I don't have a critical race theory. I have a critical jobs theory. I'm going to pass an infrastructure bill that's going to put you back to work, a child care bill that lets you go to work. That's my theory. They're going to divide you on race. I'm going to unite you on work. Why can't Democrats do that?
Well, we will see. An interesting year ahead. The reset now to the midterm starts now. If you start today, it looks bleak, but a year is a very long time. We'll continue the conversation. Come back in. We'll keep doing it.
Yeah, you'll keep on doing it, and it'll keep on sucking, right? You'll keep on doing it, and it'll continue to suck. So what this one guy said, this is what I saw, and then I backtracked and got the whole sort of segment because it was all worth watching. But I tuned in to when this guy was saying it. And it's something we've all known for a long time, and I've talked about it before. See, the left-leaning liberals, the people who live in the suburb, think that they're smarter, they're better educated, and they know more than the common people. This intellectual elitism, because they have better liberal educations, right? And they are reading things that are progressive, and they think they're more evolved. Everything that you're seeing now in terms of the stuff with gender that they rolled out during Trump. I mean, we've changed the definitions of things that have been around for, forever, right? In cultures all around the world. Changing the way words are used and things, pronouns and things like this. I mean, they're forcing this. There's been this elitism by these wealthy people. It's existed in the modeling industry and in, high society and in Hollywood. They've had a Hollywood morality, and they just think they're so much better than the average person, the common people that do all the work and, punch the clock and carry society on their backs in terms of their labor and all these things and all these other people. And they could never roll out their morality, what they believe. They could never force it on and say, look at you guys, this is what we do. This is what the people who are evolved are doing. We're so much more evolved than you, and you should do this too. Because the common people, people who are religious and, simple or whatever, would never buy it, right? They're not into it. And so they've had a hard time rolling it out. But they've put it in movies and TV shows, and they've given people little bits and pieces of it. And then they saw the opportunity in the internet to indoctrinate a whole group of children so that they would buy into it, right? Because they just know more. But it's a depraved, anti-God, natural human being, anti-nature, right? Even anti-science, true science, approach to life. It's a failed approach, and all these people are miserable. I cover it all the time. Celebrities are miserable, politicians are miserable, the rich people are miserable and they're lonely, and they're bad people. They don't like each other. They hate each other, right? The liberals, no one likes them, and they don't like each other. You watch how feminists will get into it with each other, right? I mean, they just, they don't even like each other. And so why would the rest of us like them? And they think they're so much better and higher, and they're wrong. I mean, all the groups, pretty much every group thinks they're better than the other groups. Everybody thinks they're, better than, I mean, that's how America is. There's an arrogance there, and the most arrogant group is the liberals, and it doesn't work. So when they push their, agenda through, they've already pushed their social agenda through, and now their medical agenda. And when they push all these things through, there's going to be like, oh my God, it sucks so much worse. It doesn't work. We're just as miserable as these Hollywood celebrities, and we're poor and we're not famous, right? And so, you're growing up with these kids who are depressed and suicidal because they're buying into this. They've been indoctrinated with it. And when they grow up, like, who's going to do the work, right? You got a bunch of people who are low functioning, who are always whining and entitled, and they're always being offended, and they're always trying to cancel and blame everybody else for their misery, right? And they can't, they can't hold jobs. They can't sustain relationships. They're disconnected from God. They're lonely, and they have multiple psychological issues, and they're on all these different medications, and they can't carry it, right? They can't carry a society. And that's what we're heading to. And, it's not going to work out the way they think. They have this vision of, they just see it, and if everyone else would just accept it, the world would be a better place. And that vision isn't a true vision. And so, this is where we are. And somebody's got to be blamed for it. And right now it's going to be the media and Joe Biden, all these other people. And people are already tuning off the media and want real stuff. They want authentic people. That's why CNN can't compete with people like me. All right, so let's move on to this other stuff. So I want to get to Angelina Jolie throwing Alec Baldwin under the bus, which is funny, and Will Smith, some of his bizarre claims. But let's start here. One of my friends on Instagram sent me this. Your favorite comfort foods are getting more expensive, right? And you're seeing more and more, indicators of inflation being covered by, mainstream media. And that means it's not going away. They're finally acknowledging something that we were talking about, at least I was talking about, in 2019, right? The economy had collapsed, the dollar had collapsed, and when they finally acknowledge it, it's going to be bad. Once they stop pretending that it isn't, it hasn't happened, that means they're acknowledging that there's been an economic collapse. Angelina Jolie on Alec Baldwin shooting. I'm very careful with guns. So she's crapping all over Alec Baldwin. She's just one of the nastiest, she plays Baphomet in a children's movie, Maleficent, twice. And so she's like a horrible person. But hey, this is great. I love it. That she's saying this. Angelina Jolie said the tragedy of Alec Baldwin accidental shooting and killing of cinematographer Halna Hutchins is why she's very careful with guns on the sets of her movies. This is like something my ex would have done, right? It's a way to crap all over Alec Baldwin with not really saying it, right? It's implied by saying, hey, I'm really careful. What do you think about the Alec Baldwin thing? Well, I know I'm really careful, more careful. This would never happen if I was running things. The Laura Croft Tomb Raider star opened up about her experience with gun safety in Hollywood. I can't imagine what these families are going through. At this moment, the grief and tragedy of the accident is quite overwhelming. I've always been very careful because I've had to work with guns a lot. The way I've worked or checked when I'm directing, there are certain procedures you have to take it seriously. And so that all implies that he didn't, right? And then it says Baldwin has been holed up in Vermont with wife Hilaria Baldwin since production paused on Rust. There they are, the crew of the film, but Angelina Jolie just threw him under the bus, right? And she's good at doing this. And she did it in a way that's really greasy because she's, just a nasty person. And this is how the Hollywood celebrities like treat each other, you know. And so, and again, hey, I'm not complaining. Then Will Smith reveals he fell in love with Stockard Channing during his first marriage. And, he's written what he's considering a tell-all book. And I showed you the clip of his YouTube series video where he's saying, he's been a fraud his whole life. And so the rumors in Hollywood, and they've been substantial and they're backed up by lots of evidence, I covered that in an earlier video on the other channel, is that Will Smith is gay or bisexual or something, right? And has been for years. And there's just all these indicators. So if he's going to tell the truth, it's about his sham marriage, which, many people have said in Hollywood. I mean, these are celebrities that people are around him. And he still keeps on, this is his big truth moment. And he still keeps on pushing out these fabrications. I'll come back to this. The other thing he said was, Will Smith, I thought about killing my father to avenge my mother. Apparently his father was abusive, right? And so, yeah, these are like big bombshell reveals, but they're not. Smith, who was married for the first time with wife Cherie Zampino at the time, starred in the 1993 movie as Paul Portier, a young man who enters the lives of an affluent couple played by Donald Sutherland and Stockard Channing. Zampino is the mother of Smith's son Trey. His feelings for Channing spilled over in real life, Smith writes, in Will. That's the name of his book. Shri and I were in the first months of our marriage with a brand new baby, and for Shri, I can't imagine that this experience was unsettling to say the least. She was married a guy named Will Smith, and now she was living with a guy named Paul Portier, and to make matters worse, during the shooting, I fell in love with Stockard Channing. Now, he played a gay man, like a young gay man, who pretended to be friends with the son of, and maybe the son died, I don't know, the whatever it is, but he ends up staying at the house of this affluent couple, and he brings a guy home. And so, I don't know if that's what he's describing as being the character. And now she's married to this is the character's name, to his new wife, and falling in love with Stockard Channing. Well, that's weird because she was really old. And, I mean, again, where's the big reveal here, Will? Like, if you're gonna come clean, then come clean. I was editing this, and I thought I would need to bring in more information. So this is Will Smith on the set of 6 Degrees of Separation, where he plays a gay young man that infiltrates into this family's home. He has an affair with that actor he played in Weird Science, the kid with red hair. He's in The Breakfast Club. And so he was he plays a character that's a part of this elite society. And Will Smith has an affair with the kid and exchanges sex for information about the people in this society. So Will Smith poses as he's a part of this, that he's a student that goes to school with Stockard Channing's son, right? And the other character there, this guy here, Donald Sutherland's son. And here she walks in and he's having, sex with another dude, and she freaks out. And so this is Will Smith playing a gay character in his first major movie. This is back in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air days. And the 6 Degrees of Separation is that everyone in the world is separated by just 6 people. That you can connect you to another person. Like maybe it's everyone in America. I don't know what it is. Within 6 people, somebody knows. Like if you go 6 people down the road, knows somebody else, whoever it is, the president of the United States, right? Like somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows the president, right? So Alexis Arquette drops Will Smith gay bombshell. Alexis Arquette claims that Will and Jada Smith are gay and the concussion actor paid off his first wife after she walked in on him with another man. When Jada comes out as gay and her beard husband admits his first marriage ended, and when she walked in on him servicing his sugar daddy, Benny Medina, then I will listen to them. I covered this on my other YouTube channel, on my apocalaughsnow channel, a couple of days ago, and I gave many more details. This is a follow-up video, but I talked about this already. This is Benny Medina. And Benny Medina is the guy that Will Smith credits with saving his career. He was, his rap career seemed to be over. He had that one hit song, and he didn't, consider himself an actor. And Benny Medina was the real Fresh Prince, right? And so Will Smith met him, and Benny Medina said that he, wanted Will Smith to play his, him in his life, right? Benny Medina is a gay man. Here's Alexis Arquette, and this is Will Smith's first wife. And so you see they're in many sort of sexual kind of, intimate, kind of poses. And so if, Will Smith is playing, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was really a gay person, right? And so Will Smith was playing a heterosexual version of Benny Medina, but in real life, Benny Medina is a gay man, right? The real Fresh Prince is a gay man, and Will Smith played that character, and they're seen over and over again, in these various poses and things like this. And so Benny Medina was Me Too'd. In November 2017, actor Jason Dotley accused Medina of attempting to R him in December 2008. Dotley stated that the event happened at Medina's Los Angeles mansion after Medina gave Dotley and a fellow actor, Ashanti Moselle, a tour of the home. And so he has been linked to, and he wasn't charged for the assaults, but, he has been Me Too'd. He's been linked to pursuing young male actors, which was Will Smith was, in this category, right? And so when Alexis Arquette says that he was servicing his sugar daddy, Benny Medina, well, that, there's some merit to that. It isn't just like some crazy outlandish accusation. And it says, Will threw a fit on the set of 6 Degrees of Separation when he was required by Scene to kiss Anthony Rapp, who accused Kevin Spacey. Anthony Rapp Me Too'd Kevin Spacey. He persuaded the director to shoot the back of his head frame, blocking the non-existent lip lock entirely, and F him, he says here. Gays have enemies. They lurk in gilded closets. Outing is healthy. You are with us or against us, you decide today. And there's been, revelations about Will Smith's marriage that back up what Alexis Arquette says. Again, Alexis Arquette is part of a celebrity family and knows the Hollywood culture. And people in Hollywood know things about each other, things like this, right? Secrets. And there's been a lot of, Hollywood actors who have been secretly, they've been closeted in some way. And they're on the LGBTQ spectrum. Then there was the Jada Pinkett Smith affair with Augustus Alsina, right? This guy was, he wrote songs about it, and, people hammered him, and he felt he was being maligned. But it came out, she finally admitted that they were together for 2 years, and he was friends with the family. He would hang out and go on like vacations with them. He was friends with her kids. They hung out. And, Will Smith hung out with them. So they were having an open marriage, an open affair, which she eventually came out about, right? And here they are together. Here they are as a family, right? And so, we now know that their marriage is a sham, which they admitted to. So there's more evidence to support not only Alexis Arquette's accusations, but Kevin Kline. There was rumors that Will had an affair with this other guy, which I covered before. You can watch the other video. And so there's a lot of evidence supporting that Will Smith had a double life and that he's actually, gay or bisexual. And, I think the evidence is overwhelming about this just because I've covered it. And it's not anything to do with me. It's just other people who are around Will Smith and the way he acts and some of the things he's said. And, I'm not going to put the compilation in here, but you can go look at the compilation. It's just there. And that's just, some of it. And so he needs to address this, right? Because he's been lying to people for years and also pushing his family out there, right? Like he has marketed his family like this perfect family and his marriage and things, and thanked his wife at award shows and all these things, when their marriage sucked. And he's been lying to people, like he said in the preview to his series on YouTube. He's got some kind of deal with YouTube. He's doing this weight loss series. Well, he says he's been living a lie and he's a fake brand. Then just come out and tell the truth, right? That's all you have to do. It's just, the lies, right? Just stop lying. Okay, I can understand why he didn't come out when he was, in the 80s. Yeah, sure, that makes sense. I could understand why he made the choices he did. Lying about his whole existence, faking a marriage and all these things. It's effed up, but I can understand it. But now, the only thing he'll have to address is the lying. Like, it's much easier for people to come out now, especially somebody like him. It's just the lying he has to deal with. But mostly, he'll be celebrated in some way. It'll be mostly positive for him. He has no excuse to continue lying about this. So my wife sent me this as well as some other people. Sent me this link about Bill Gates saying we now have to worry about measles.
And are we doing things now, or rather are we not doing things now that we really need to be doing in preparation for the next pandemic?
Yeah, so it was 2015 that I gave the TED Talk and wrote a number of papers.
So this is where he's claiming he knew about this all along. So the first part to this is, again, I haven't seen this, but I knew what it's going to be, because he's now stating why he's credible. Because he gave a TED Talk and he wrote a bunch of papers. He's in a defensive position, right? His arms are crossed. He's Bill Gates, Bill Master Gates. And he is trying to claim that, he was ahead of the curve. Like, he knew about this before anybody else, so he has more street cred than the normal person.
Titled, "We're Not Ready for the Next Pandemic." And sadly, that was a better forecast of what would happen than anyone would have wished for.
And let's look at how smug he is. See, I was right. Right, I was right. See, you guys?
The economic damage.
You should have listened to me then, so you should listen to me now.
The deaths, it's been completely horrific. And I would expect that will lead the R&D budgets to be focused on things we didn't have today.
They're listening to me now. Remember, you said that before,
We didn't have vaccines that block transmission. We got vaccines that help you with your health, but they only slightly reduce the transmissions. We need a new way of doing the vaccines. We didn't get much in the way of therapeutics. Dexamethasone and now molnupiravir could help, but way less than should have been the case. We didn't get the diagnostics up and running in order to...
See, now he's saying these are the solutions. I predicted the problem, and these are the solutions that I've been telling everyone about, so now you guys should buy into them. But the guy has lost his credibility to most people. Like, he never had it with all of us, but he ran Microsoft like an evil corporation, like the evil monolithic, like a Big Brother type of corporation, where they squished smaller other, for example, Mozilla and Netscape and all these other deals. They had all these lawsuits because they had created a monopoly, and he then was having affairs and sexually harassing his coworkers, based in revelations that's come from his divorce. So the guy's computers and software always suck. Like, I have Apple computers now, that's what I use, and they're just so much better. So much better than the Microsoft crap. And so he wasn't even good at doing that. And he's not a doctor. And then he became a philanthropist, even though he doesn't have a good heart. Like, if you look at this guy, if you're doing like a spiritual reading of this guy, right? You know, very tight, very mental, not a loving person, not a caring person, not somebody that would be out there helping people with his massive amount of money. You could see him being like, he looks like Mr. Burns, right? He's a billionaire, rich billionaire, a hoarder of wealth. And he says, all right, now I'm going to share the wealth with other people. And people are like, oh, he's so great. Oh, yeah, he's, you know, he cares about other people so much. No, he doesn't, right? Come on, look at him. Look at the guy. He's not that guy, right? He's not that guy who's turning over billions of dollars to help other people. He's not into it. And his lies are out there. You can go and find them easily. His contradictions, what he really believes about, the masses. And he's done damage. And he wasn't even good in his own marriage, right? He didn't treat his wife with respect, whatever that stuff is, right? Based in what we're hearing about the divorce, hanging out with seedy characters, all of it, right? And now he's trying to claim like, oh, I've been right all along. You hope you guys listen to me now.
To, achieve what at least Australia and New Zealand showed, that competent management could keep the death rate down pretty dramatically. And so
he's said that we need to reduce people because of carbon emissions. There's that CO2 talk he gives at TED. And he's a part of, he won the population award at the UN, which is for people who have successfully reduced the world population. That there is, in the world is overpopulated. It's a real problem. And he's a guy who has come out and, wanted to find ways to reduce the growth of population. And so why is he talking about saving lives, right? It's a contradiction to what he's already said his true belief about what needs to happen. One of the solutions is to bring down the population. And it has to happen, but not the way they're doing it.
I'm hoping in 5 years I can write a book called, We Are Ready for the Next Pandemic. But it'll take tens of billions in R&D that the US and the UK will be part of that. It'll take probably about $1 billion a year for a pandemic task force at the WHO level, which is doing the surveillance and actually doing what I call germ games, where you practice. You say, okay, what if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports? How
So now he's bringing up smallpox.
would the world respond to that? That there's naturally caused epidemics and bioterrorism caused epidemics that could.
So are you saying this one's a bioterrorism? What about this one? Like what?
Even be way worse than what we experience today, and yet the advances in medical science should give us tools that we could do dramatically better. So you'd think this would be.
There was I don't know if it was a Time magazine cover or something. I don't know. I've covered it before, but it said that he is the world's most powerful or most influential doctor, and he's not a doctor. He's not a medical doctor, and he's not a healer. Somebody can be a doctor and not be a healer. Healers have a certain type of energy, right? There's people who are just have a natural healing type of quality to them, and they can be allopathic doctors or any number of people. They can be nurses or midwives, or they could just be your grandmother who just has the ability to be healing, right? Somebody that helps people be healthy. There's just a healing energy that they have. And he has the opposite of that. He's not, he's predatory. He's not a healing person. He doesn't have a loving heart, right? He doesn't have, love emanating from it. Like I talk about with the heartfulness system, right? The heartfulness system, you meditate and receive this transmission, and then it oozes out of you, and it, makes the world a better place. But he's, got the opposite of that. He's, very mental. He's not a hard person. His heart is, not functioning, his etheric heart. He's not a person that probably feels love at all, so, he can't heal people because, all healing comes from divine energy, loving energy. And, with the creative force that is, healing. And he doesn't have it, right?
It would be a priority. The next year will be where those allocations have to get made, including this global pandemic task force. The nice thing is a lot of the R&D we need to do.
See, one thing is that people can manifest things. And now people are so scared by this, and their fear comes from a variety of places. Like so many people are fear-based about taking the medicine or taking the, or the economic aspects, or they're just scared of dying from the disease. And you got so many different people that are exuding, manifesting a nightmare scenario in the future based in them using fear. He's using fear right now to push some bad stuff on people, right? This is using other people's fears and their ability to manifest reality against them.
To be ready for the next pandemic are things like making vaccines cheap, having big factories, eradicating the flu, getting rid of the common cold, making vaccines just a little patch you put on your arm, things that will be incredibly beneficial even in the years when we don't have pandemics. So, along with the climate message and the ongoing fight against disease of the poor, the pandemic preparedness is something I'll be talking about a lot. And I think...
So, again, if the world's overpopulated, which I believe it is, and he believes it is, there needs to be a reduction in human population. And there's a weakness right now. There's a lot of weak physically and mentally, physically weak and mentally underdeveloped people in the world. And a lot of them are poor people. They don't get the proper nutrition, and they are, they're living miserable lives, right? And to exterminate them, to get rid of them would be, you don't have permission to do that. You can't just do that, right? I mean, morally, in terms of your relationship with God, you can't do something like that. But if nature, intervenes in some way, because nature intervenes when any species is overpopulating. Things happen. The species, the same things you see now with human beings happen in other mammal species when there's overpopulation. The species gets crazy. They start getting almost like suicidal and take risks. They're prone to diseases. They eat their own young, right? It's just, they go into like moral depravity. They start acting self-destructive. And that's what you see with humanity. Because humanity, its population has been growing and growing. And people have this, stupid idea that, well, there's all this available land. No, it's not. It's cities, right? It's small population centers. We're overpopulated in small cities, polluting, and people are weaker and weaker. And there's going to be a reduction. And you just have to let it happen, right? But they want to control it. That's what this is all about. They want to control who dies and who lives and all these things, and you can't do that. You have to let nature run its course. Of course, you want you and the people you love to survive, and you want other people you don't like to die. That's how, when something like this happens, everyone's thinking that way, right? But you can't, influence it. I mean, you can try to, survive it the best you can, protect yourself, and find out what you need to do to stay healthy and, boost your immune system, all the things that I've talked about for years, and live in a more, connect to God and serve a purpose, right? Connect to God and do godly work so God has, every reason to keep you around and the people, your whatever it is, your circle of people around you, because you're all contributing. You're part of the solution. That's how you justify your existence, by making the world a better place, right? But he's not doing that, and none of these people are, right?
It'll find fertile ground because, we lost trillions of dollars and millions of lives. And, citizens expect their governments not to let that happen again.
But right now we're operating, see, and he's got this smug look on his face at the end, like this evil, look at this evil Bill Gates, look at this evil MFer, right? But, and so here's the thing about that. There's 140 million babies born every year. And I think it's 52 million people die every year. And so that's a net gain of around, it was like 80 some million. I've covered this before. I had the exact numbers, but it's 80 million more people every year. So it's almost 100 million people. And so that's 1 billion in every 10 years. It used to be a much wider gap. And, again, humanity's overpopulated, and it's just, there needs to be a reduction. Naturally, not, man-made reduction, not people controlling and, deciding who gets to live and who dies. But there needs to be a reduction. And even with the increase in deaths that has happened this past, year or two, there's still going to be more growth, human population growth. And he knows it. because he's talked about it. He's talked about needing to reduce the population, and he said 15% wasn't enough. And so, there needs to be more people dying and less people being born. That's what has to happen, and he's all about that, and so are these other people. They're just being dishonest about it. See, the problem with Bill Gates is the same problem Will Smith is having. It's the same problem JoJo Magoo is having, and CNN is having, and, all these other corporations and Hollywood and scientists and religious leaders and religions in general are all having. It's a simple problem. They've lied to you, right? They've told big lies, really big lies, bigger lies, huge lies, right? And, America has historically, and, they've been withholding information, right? Obscurantism from the Heartfulness Whispers of the Brighter World messages, which is, purposely withholding and deceiving from a leadership position, giving information to your followers, it's like your children, your family, all these things. It's like Santa Claus, right? Telling your kids Santa Claus is real. And sometimes they're going to figure out that's not true. And for kids, they're a little bit more accepting, and then, whatever. They reconcile that whatever possible way. But adults, and we've been doing it for generations, you can't come in and tell the truth, especially since our system is predicated in you and me and all of us believing the lies. It's based in illusion. It's based in, misperception, that we misperceive reality and we believe our system is something that it's not, right? Everything in our culture is built on a foundation of lies. Now they're in a position where the truth is coming out in many ways, not just the internet, but on a spiritual level. People are, waking up on a spiritual level and realizing they've been deceived and can feel it, not just, in terms of intellectual process, but can feel it. They don't feel the same way about the system. And now big changes need to happen. And they can't just come out and say, hey, not all of us are going to make it, right? We need to reduce the population. We're going from population growth to a shrinking population. That needs to happen. And not all of us is going to make it, right? Like, that's not a message people could hear, because you're going to say, well, I'm going to make it, right? Well, and so that's where we are right now. That's why only spirituality will save this world. It's Paravato. Definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.